In this video, we're going to walk through publishing cost documents from Dext. This is going to be a little bit more general, and then we will dive into more JobTread specific procedures for those who use JobTread in a different video. So to start off, you'll see that I have 4 documents in my costs inbox. And with these particular items, I just took the picture and I uploaded them, and I did not add any additional information before submitting them. So I'm going to open one up. I'm going to start with this bottom one here. This one is from Roofing Subcontractor, and this supplier already exists in QuickBooks, so there's no little symbol here. But I'm going to show you in the drop-down menu that if there is a vendor or a supplier who is not already in QuickBooks, you will have this warning symbol that says not present in QuickBooks Online. And it's okay if the vendor is actually not present in QuickBooks Online, then you can still leave it as is, and it will create it whenever you publish the document. But if you know that this vendor already exists, for example, the hardware store one, if it was like Ace Hardware, but Dex picked up that it was a local Ace Hardware, so like, your local town name, Ace Hardware, then you could go in the drop down, just search for Ace Hardware and choose the general one. That way you're not creating duplicate vendors. Okay, the document reference is going to be the invoice number. And so sometimes Dext picks up on that, sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, but that document number is important to you, then you can go ahead and add that in here. It does not always pick up the correct due date. It usually does okay with the actual date of the document, but the due date is not always correct, and so you can always change that by clicking on the calendar and choosing the right date. Now, before moving on, this is an invoice type document. You'll see that you can also do receipts, ATM withdrawals, etc. Okay, I don't believe this actually affects the QuickBooks side. That's just more for the Dext side, because at the bottom you will choose what it publishes to in QuickBooks. All right. In the category and product or service, you will choose one or the other, not both. Category maps this to an account in your chart of accounts in QuickBooks. Product or service maps it to a product or service in QuickBooks. So I will mention a JobTread thing here that if you are, most likely you are using your product and services mapped to the cost codes, then you will want to choose a product and service as opposed to a category. The category, like I said, will be your chart of accounts. So for example, for this one, well, this is subcontractor. So I could choose, subcontractor COGS, then the whole thing will just go there, but it would map as uncategorized on the JobTread side. And so, but you can fix it on the JobTread side if that does happen. But the product and service will map it to the item, the first item that has that cost code and cost type in the budget. Okay, so in this case, I actually want to split this up because I have some roofing subcontractor labor and some equipment rental included in this. So we'll show how to do that. All right, if this is for a particular job, then you will want to choose a customer. And the customer, I want to show this here. This will have the customer name. And if the jobs are sub-customers, then those will show separately. And so it's important to name the jobs something that has a differentiator from just the customer name. Or it may say, job number, whatever. So you would choose that from here. It will also, if you're using projects, then it will pull in the project names from QuickBooks as well. Okay. Okay, so in this case, I do want to choose James Tyler Roof. And this is a residential job in this case. So if you have your classes available, then you choose a class. You can type something in the description. In this case, I will do that when I create the different line items here. All right. In this case, this is a bill. So that's what I would want to publish it to QuickBooks as. There are a few different options, and cash, check, credit card, all publish as expenses. Bill publishes as a bill. Credit note is like a credit memo from a vendor. And credit card credit is a refund to a credit card. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, in this case, it is a bill, and I'm going to mark it as not paid yet. And so in that case, then I'm also not choosing a payment method. All right, since I want to split this, I'm going to use create line items. And my first item, I can scroll down here. Then I will want this to be roofing subcontractor. And I'll just put roofing labor. My customer is going to be the James Tyler Roof, which looks like it pulled that from the other fields that we had entered. And I have the class also from the prior entry, quantity 10, unit price 80. Okay, I'm going to add my next line item. I'll just pause really quick so you don't have to watch me do that. All right, so now that is complete. I'm going to mark that as done. And it's still asking me for a category or product or service. So I am going to go ahead and just choose something. I'll just choose roofing subcontractor. This is not going to actually affect anything because what's going to publish is the line item information. All right, I have everything populated in here, so I'm going to hit publish. That's going to move that over into the QuickBooks side. All right, I'm going to go to this hardware store item. And in this case, again, it shows that this one is actually a receipt, not an invoice. And the date of that was, March 14th. The supplier, in this case, so if I'm not pushing this over into something like JobTread, and I just want this to go to the chart of accounts in QuickBooks, then I could just choose a category of tools. And we do have that. Or if you just want to keep it consistent and always use a product and service, then you can just create a product or service for that just for internal purposes and map that to that account in the chart of accounts. There's no customer for this. Description, I could put hammer. All right. Now, in this case, this is already paid for. So I do have this marked as paid. It shows that it was paid with MasterCard 1234, which just happens to map to my checking account in QuickBooks. And I am publishing this to cash. So again, this was not an actual check. I like to reserve check for actual checks. And cash will just push it through as an expense. So if you have not already mapped your payment method, then you will need to do that. So the way to do that is to go to more lists and go to payment methods. And usually it will, if it picks up on a card number, it will show name as new and it'll show the card number as the reference here. And so I usually just change the name to the actual, account name. And I'm going to say whenever you see this card, then you can publish it to cash and map to the checking account. And so this is going to pull the accounts that you have in QuickBooks. Okay, I'll explain this other one in a second. So that's why that's already populated in that particular document. Before we move on, I want to also show you that you can also create rules for your suppliers. And so, for example, the hardware store, I know that it's always tools, or most of the time it's tools. Then I can set that in here so that I'm not having to fill that in every time. And on the off chance that it's not that particular account, sometimes then I can always just change that in the document. All right, I'm going to go back in here. So you see, even though it has that rule, I can always choose a different account if I wanted to. All right, so this is ready to publish. So I'm going to hit publish. And I'm going to move on to this other hardware store one just to show you how returns work. And QuickBooks only accepts return type transactions for credit cards. It doesn't allow you to publish that to like a checking account. So our workaround for that is that in QuickBooks, we have an account called returns clearing account that is a credit card type account. So I'm going to show you how this works. So I'm going to say this goes back to the tools account. And there's no customer description. I'll just put return hammer. And paid, yes. Payment method, this is where you would use the returns clearing account. So if I choose checking account, it changes it to cash or check would be the only two, but I will get an error message that I need to change it to a credit note or credit card credit. And this is not a credit note. Credit notes are, your credit memos from your vendors. This is an actual refund. So I'm going to need to publish this as a credit card credit. And it's going to tell me this is not a credit card account. So then I choose the returns clearing account and I can publish this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I will show you what happens on the QuickBooks side. So now on the QuickBooks side, if I go to my returns clearing account, I will have negative $25 in there. So what I would do in my bank feed is that when I see this transaction come through, then I'm going to leave that as hardware store as my vendor. And I'm not going to choose tools here. I'm going to use the clearing account, the returns clearing account, and then publish that. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my chart of accounts and view the register, and you'll see that it's zeroed out. So that's typically how we handle that if we're publishing these from the Dext side. And that way we do have the receipts as well in QuickBooks for those. All right, this last one, I'm going to wait until I do the JobTread video. But in general, that is how you use Dext. Now on the QuickBooks side, just so you see how things publish, you see that one transaction here maps to an expense. So that's the one that we published as cash. And one matches to the bill, which we published as bill. And then whenever you match them here on, you definitely want to match them on the QuickBooks side. Don't just enter them as a whole separate expense from the bank feed, because then you will wind up with duplicates of the items published from Dext and then the items published separately from the bank feed. So if there's a match, you want to always use match. And if you do that for a bill, then it will mark it as paid.